Hey, good afternoon. Brenda Meller with Meller Marketing. We're back for another slice of social media pie where I bring in inspiring people to inform and educate you. And very excited today, I have with me another fellow Troy Chamber of Commerce member, Mandy Kirk. Mandy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing really good, thank you. And we were just getting kind of started in the background here, and we're all working from home nowadays. And you have a young child from home. And I heard right before we got on the call some cries in the background, and I kind of tell people we're all we're doing the best we can, right? In terms of getting the home office set up and connecting digitally with everybody and getting everything kind of squared away. But then it's like the other part of it, it's the work-life balance, right, Mandy? And
it is.
And right, dealing with that. So I always tell my guests too, I mean, this is a real show with real people. We've had celebrity cameo appearances from pets. We've had children. Sometimes we've had spouses and people walking in the background too. But, feel free as we're going throughout today, if we need to take care of things, we take care of things. And that's how I roll. So I just want to say thank you, Mandy, first for making the time today to join me. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Of course. I'm looking forward to telling people about how to help their posture.
Awesome. Well, I think we're going to have a great conversation here today, guys. And I want to welcome anybody who's watching us this morning. Good morning. Good morning. Actually, afternoon. It's afternoon already here. It's kind of flying by. I had to recalibrate there. So good afternoon. If you're watching, we would love it if you could drop a comment below and let us know where in the world are you watching us from. Mandy and I are both in Metro Detroit. And let us know where in the household you're joining us from. I'm in Metro Detroit. I'm in Fraser, Michigan, working out of my home office. And Mandy, are you in Troy or where are you located?
I am. I'm in Troy. Yep, okay. Just in my front room, my office space.
There you go. We're all having to recalibrate where is the place that we work, which is really leading us to today's conversation. We are now having to figure out how to work from home, 6 to 8 hours, however many hours it is that we're working from home. And we're using different chairs than are ergonomically correct and comfortable. So we are all having some issues with, posture. And when we first were talking about getting onto this live, I said, what do you want to talk about? And you said, hey, let's talk about correcting your sitting posture to make working in your home or office less painful. And I was like, wow, that's brilliant. I'm like, I actually want to learn about that because I've been working from home myself for about 3 years. And I have a chair. It's okay. I need to buy a better chair. I know that. But I'm curious what Mandy will be sharing. Before I turn the discussion over to Mandy, would just like to remind all of you, drop comments below. We'll be doing Q&A a little bit later on. We'll give some folks some shout outs, and I'll actually pull your name up on screen. So we have Teresa joining us who's tagging somebody. And I encourage you, tag people that that could be watching that might be interested in the discussion here today. And let us know where, Catherine's sitting on the porch. It's a beautiful day here in Metro Detroit. So let us know. I'll do some shout outs a little bit later on with that. So Mandy and I, we met through the Troy Chamber, and was it a general networking or was it a happy hour? Do you remember what the event was, Mandy?
I think it was general networking. I haven't been to a happy hour in a while. So.
Okay, right, yeah. So it was, we kind of do introductions, and we all went around, and I invited people. I said, here's one of my asks. I'm doing LinkedIn Lives. You want to come out and talk about something informational, educational, or inspirational? And I put the ask out, and Mandy said, yeah, let's come on. So Mandy, why don't you, if you could take a minute or two to describe for people, who are you, what's your business all about, and then we'll get into the conversation here.
Sure. So I'm Dr. Mandy Kirk. I am a doctor of physical therapy. I've been at my own clinic in Troy at Rochester and Maple. It's called Move to Success Physical Therapy. So I've been there for almost 3 years now. And my passion is treating all ages, so kids and adults. I do a lot with children, which is super cool, super rewarding. But I feel like as adults, we're always getting older and we're always getting hurt. So there's a huge market there for being able to help people one-on-one.
Absolutely. Good. And how long have you been a member of the Troy Chamber?
It's been about 2 years.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's get into this conversation here today. So correcting your sitting posture to make working in your home or office less painful. And I'm sure many people who come to you for physical therapy are coming because of, I want to say, self-induced traumas, if you will, meaning,
yes.
We're not sitting in the right place. And I agree with you when you say, as we're getting older. I mean, I had like a month ago, I was doing jumping jacks and I pulled a muscle in my calf. I'm like, what the actual heck, you guys? Like, how does that person pull a muscle in their calf from doing a jumping jack? But in the past, I worked with a physical therapist. I had a calf injury in the past. So I'm like, I probably just re-aggravated it. And we get older, and there's things that we can do to both help prevent it and then, to help work through those issues. So tell us, let's get started into the conversation here.
Yeah. So because everyone is kind of switching up their workspace, and they might be working from home more and modifying their home space. So sitting in a dining room chair, sitting on their couch, even doing meetings from bed. I had a patient tell me that, oh, well, my morning meeting's super early, so I'm kind of just like lounging and trying to make it work while I'm, laying in my bed.
Yeah.
So our home space is not set up for ergonomics because we're chilling there. So we need to be able to make modifications so that we're not hurting ourselves in positions that are bad for our bodies. So I wanted to go over a few common postural issues that I see a lot in physical therapy. And so the first one is called posterior pelvic tilt. So this sounds complicated, but it's really your pelvis, your hips are here.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And posterior pelvic tilt is tilting backwards. So
okay.
If you can actually do this right now, you can lean and push your belly button back towards your seat and your hips kind of come forward.
Okay. Are you guys doing this? I'm doing this right now. Okay. So
yeah.
Pushing my belly button back. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So the normal arch in your low back is kind of eliminated when you do that, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So this is a problem because you're not engaging your core, which is super, super, super important. Is we want to engage our core even when we're sitting. Yeah. And it can lead to low back pain. So I tell people that your body is kind of like a pop can. So you have the top of your pop can is your diaphragm. Mm-hmm. The bottom of your pop can is your pelvic floor. Okay. And then on the sides, you have your abs and you have your low back muscles. Mm-hmm. So if you have weakness in any of those places, then your pop can is not stable and it collapses. So those are the things that we focus on no matter where the injury is. I'm always looking at people's hips. I'm looking at their core, and I'm deciding, okay, is there core weakness that we need to address? Is there lumbar extension pain that we need to address? So that's
when you're talking about the belly, Mandy, I think about, like, as a mom, I don't know if we all have, I have the mom pooch, still some extra, and it's a badge of courage, you guys. I am not ashamed to show, I wear bathing suits in the summer with my family and friends and stuff like that, but it's still there. And I've worked on it over the years, and I've tried to strengthen it a little bit, but, it's a natural part of life. We grow a human being inside of us, and things get stretched out a little bit, but then naturally, and if you're not, kind of correcting that, the pooch just stays there forever. But I could even feel when you're talking about that, oh my gosh, I'm like, yeah, part of it is like when you're not pulling your belly back, when you're pushing forward, you're actually aggravating probably that mom pooch a little bit, I think.
Right. So I tell people to do pelvic tilts. So we'll go over this during the exercises portion, but being able to understand how your hips move back and forth is super, super important for positioning yourself correctly in a chair. Okay. And I used to do some pelvic floor work, and pelvic floor is not just for women, it's for everybody. And doing things like Kegels to engage your pelvic floor is super important for sitting posture as well. Okay. We can go over that.
We're gonna do some exercises, I think, here today, right?
We're all gonna be doing exercises here. It's gonna be great. So you're naturally gonna want to rotate posteriorly, which is not a good thing. You want to engage your core. So the second thing is forward head posture. So this is text neck. See people on their phones and they're leaning forward, or you're trying to see something on your laptop really close, and your head is forward. So this isn't good because you're not in your anatomical position. You want to be with your head directly over your shoulders, and it can cause pain and tightness in the back of your neck here, but it can also cause overstretching in the front of your neck. So that's something that people don't really address because they're thinking about the pain maybe back here in the back of their neck by their head, but you're also overstretching this area. So what we want to do is focus on strengthening the muscles that are overstretched and then stretching the muscles that are too tight. So that's like your double-edged sword when you do physical therapy.
So if we've got text neck, and I remember when I first started really working from home, and I was doing this a lot, and at the end of the day, I'm like, oh gosh, why is my back hurt? My neck is hurting. And I was like, well, let's think about the position that is creating that. So what can we do? I mean, should we be like pulling our phones up higher, or what's the, or should we be consciously, pulling our neck back so we are more in alignment? What is your advice there?
I mean, why not both, right? Okay. So you want to be able to make adjustments to your ergonomic position so that you don't, lean forward and do this that you shouldn't be doing. But you also need to consciously reevaluate, like, what position am I in all the time, right? So it might feel awkward to bring your neck further back, and you might be like, oh, I have this double chin thing going on that I don't really want people to see. Well, I mean, this is a more appropriate position. So bringing your neck back and bringing the phone up, both.
Yeah, and I put that in the comments that are kind of scrolling here. So text neck, I like that because it's like that's what it's caused by, right? And thinking about the positioning of things, it's a little slight technique, and we don't even think about it like, oh, this isn't going to hurt myself. But if you're doing this for 6-8 hours a day, by the end of the day, you are getting a little bit of that pain coming out.
Everything compounds, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then something that goes along with that forward neck position is the rounded shoulders. So the shoulders that come forward, kind of like the cave person, everybody's like this.
Yeah.
So that's called scapular protraction. So scapular retraction is bringing your shoulders back.
Okay.
Scapular protraction is when your shoulders are too far forward.
Okay.
And so that causes, slight discomfort in the back area, the shoulders, but also in your pecs. So people don't really think about your pecs, but your pecs are getting super, super tight when your shoulders are rolled forward like that.
Okay.
So that's something that when I do manual work on people, when I do hands-on stuff at the end, if I feel somebody's pec, they almost shoot off the table. They're like, oh my goodness, that's super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yep. We're always bringing our shoulders forward.
Right. So that's just more of a conscious, and I'm kind of putting these tips up on screen here, Mandy, focus on rounded shoulders. So pull your shoulders back, and I don't know about you guys, but as I'm listening to Mandy right now, I'm kind of feeling myself going from a comfortable slouching position where now I'm like, okay, I just adjusted my belly and my shoulders. I kind of feel myself just, when I'm in a comfortable resting position, I don't think about them being rolled forward, but as soon as she says, pull your shoulders back, I'm like, oh, they were rolled forward. I didn't realize that our body kind of gets comfortably into that position. Right. So yeah, if I'm capturing, you want to correct anything as I'm putting the tips up on screen, Mandy, feel free to, I'm trying to remember and write as we're going here.
No, you're doing great. Mm-hmm. So we addressed the core, we addressed the shoulders, we addressed the neck, and then I wanted to talk about your wrist and hand position. So you hear a lot of people in the office talking about carpal tunnel. So, wrist pain because of the position that they are in typing on their keyboards.
Yes.
And I think that this is even more of a problem now that we are at home because our keyboard is not on a desk that's at a normal height. So if you're working at home and you're working from your dinner table, your dinner table might not be an opportune height for you to be typing on all the time. So you want to keep 90-degree angles at your elbows. So like here, you don't want to be super crunched up and you don't want to be too far extended. 90-degree angles, keeping your elbows in nice and tight to your body.
Okay.
And a neutral wrist position. So not too far extended, not too far flexed, because we don't want to pinch. Your carpal tunnel actually is a tunnel that runs right here in the front of your wrist, and it has a whole bunch of important stuff that goes through it. So if you're extending too much because you're trying to reach your keyboard all day, then you're going to be cutting off the circulation to a lot of different things that cause shooting pains that people do not like to have. So
yeah, I remember a while back I was getting those, it was like my thumbs were, I think it was more my left thumb. I don't know. I feel like one thumb was hurting more at the end of the day. And I think it was because of how I was typing on my keyboard, and it was not at the right angle, or, maybe it was a combination of being on the phone too much on the keyboard. I don't remember which, but I was like, at the end of the day, it wouldn't hurt at all during the day, but it was like at night I'd be sitting in bed and I'm like, my thumb hurts. And it was like, even things like opening up the shampoo bottle or screwing a lid on, I was like, oh, it hurts today. And then I realized the next day, what position was causing that dull aching pain to come back, and then starting to correct that. But I love that, 90-degree angle at the elbows, because look at you guys, so what you're doing right now. And I think about, if you've done like the phone calls, the Zoom calls from working in bed, or like you said, working at the kitchen table, or working at a table that's not ideally meant for work, right? Like the TV trays, or, we're making do with card tables and things like that. Look at, is it a 90-degree angle, neutral wrist position? And if not, then we need to make some adjustments there, is what I heard.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. And then finally, your legs. So picking a seat that's an optimal height is important, because you want your knees to be at a 90-degree angle as well. So elbows and knees both at 90 degrees, and your hips at 90 degrees.
Okay. Elbows and knees. And I'm going to type this in here too, at 90 degrees. And what did you say about your hips?
So you want that hip angle to be 90 degrees as well. So you don't want to be in a seat where your feet aren't touching the ground and your legs are kind of dangling. You don't want to be on something really low to the ground, like a beanbag chair where your knees are up by your ears. So neither of those are appropriate for your optimal leg position.
Yeah, it might feel comfortable when you first plop down in that beanbag chair, right? But 2 hours into it, working on projects, work, whatever you're doing, your body, especially the older we get, right? Our kids can do that. They can sit in the beanbag all day long and get up and run around and they're fine. But you got to listen to your body, right? And it's not comfortable. It's not really meant for a full work day. Right. What are your thoughts on and I was going to get one of these for my home office, the yoga balls, to sit on that instead of a chair. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. So actually, I'm sitting on a yoga ball right now.
You are? I didn't even know this, you guys. Like, seriously. So so my question, like, how do you pick the height for that? And I was like going to order one on Amazon, but I'm like, I don't want to get one that's too big or too small, and I'm hearing you saying 90 degrees. So how did you figure out the height that you needed for that ball?
So they do come in different heights. And for me, what I did was trial and error. But in retrospect, what I wish I would have done was they give you the diameter of the ball.
Okay.
And if you measure like from the base of your butt to the ground in a seat that is comfortable for you, that you're at your 90 degrees.
Gotcha.
Then that should be an ideal around that circumference or diameter. I don't know the math, but
I'm not either, but I hear what you're saying. So kind of looking for the height there. Do you sit on the ball all the time, or do you sometimes sit in a chair and sometimes sit on the ball, or what do you do? I'm curious.
So when I'm at home, I've been sitting on the ball only because that's what I have access to. I actually took it from my clinic and I brought it over. I have a chair at the clinic, but what I tell people is the ball is a challenge at first. It takes some getting used to, because you have to have core engagement all the time to be able to maintain your balance. You have to have your feet spread out just a little bit. I'm in almost, I think, too much anterior pelvic tilt. So the opposite, when you push your belly button towards the front. So like I'm creating too much of an arch in my low back, and I really have to be careful about that. So I tell people to kind of use it at your discretion. Maybe start with an hour, see how you tolerate it. You might be a little bit sore, to be honest. But
what about standing desk? And I've actually got a standing desk. I've never done a LinkedIn Live using it yet. Maybe I will some point. Yeah. But what are your thoughts on standing desk? And I've heard, it's better to be standing for a portion of the day, especially if you're really in a sedentary role. Any thoughts on that?
Right. So similar to the ball, I would say if you can ease into it, I've seen those desks. I know that they have them at some of the big three. GM has some standing desks, I believe. So you can raise and lower. Okay. Right? Which is really cool, because you can raise it up, you can stand for an hour, and then when you're like, ooh, I really need a break or my feet are starting to hurt, then lower it back down. Because the one negative with the standing desks is it's really hard on your arches to be on your feet that whole time. So I've seen people do standing desks and they have like one of those more absorbent foamy pads so that they can stand on that. It gives their feet a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
You have inserts in your shoes. That way you're not completely just weight bearing on your feet all day.
I've also seen it's almost like a cafe style chair where you're not sitting on it completely, but you're resting, just your bottom, your hips on it. So you're still at a standing position, but you're using that as a modification. And I kind of like I like the concept of a standing desk. That's why I got it. And I've used it a few times here and there. I do kind of like it, but then I get to a point where it's like, I don't want to stand anymore. I want to sit.
Right.
But I don't want to sit down, because it's like, it has like the 3 built-in heights. You can go kind of modify it on there. But I've always like, I want to get the yoga ball. I don't know about you guys, but right now I'm having this conversation. I keep feeling my hips going forward and I'm pulling them back. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling it again. Like I'm pulling it back. So thank you. You're helping me, and I'm sure you're helping many people with your tips right there.
It's a battle for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the main postural issues that I see, and I'm sure that there's other ones that people experience. And if people have questions, they can feel free to ask in the chat, and I can help.
All right.
I wanted to go through some exercises that address those specific postural issues that we talked about.
All right, perfect.
For the pelvic tilt, we talked a little bit about doing pelvic tilts while laying on your back.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if I can demonstrate.
We're doing demonstrations of exercises, you guys. Come along with us, won't you?
We are.
Was it Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? He would be like, "Come along, we'll come and you
right.
watch the trolley," and then he walks off camera, and you go along with him. This is we've done different things on my LinkedIn Live. This is the first time we've done demonstrations of exercises, Mandy. So,
well, good. I'm glad that I can be here for this monumental moment. So, laying down on your back with your knees bent up. And what you're going to do is you're going to be doing exactly what I explained before, where I'm reclining, but you do it fully on your back. I just want to be able to show you.
Yep.
Raising your belly button up towards the ceiling.
Okay.
So basically you have a string attached to your belly button, and think that there's tension on that string, and you're pulling it straight up, and you're going to feel your hips move and create that space in your low back. So your lumbar spine is going to arch. And then, so that's anterior pelvic tilt. And then you're going to do the opposite. So pushing your belly button as hard as you can down into your ground or your bed or wherever you're doing the exercise, and rolling your hips up and just going back and forth. So this exercise might seem like it's super easy, self-explanatory, but if you guys actually get down and try it, people have a hard time controlling their hips.
Yeah. That's very cool. So I put you into large screen mode, Mandy, and I'll continue to do that as you're showing us different exercises so people can kind of see it, and it kind of changes the view in StreamYard from kind of smaller view to wider view, so you can actually see the exercises. And hey, if you guys are working from home right now, take a break. Go ahead and practice along with Mandy. The good thing is we can't see you. You can hear us, if you put this on broadcast, and move the chair out of your way where you're at, get down on the living room floor and try some of these exercises.
Absolutely. It's good to take a little break. So the other really important one for core engagement is those Kegels that I mentioned. So, and again, Kegels are not just for women, so guys can also do these.
See, I thought those were just for women, and I never knew men could try those too. I thought that was like just a female thing.
Yeah, so every person has a pelvic floor. So it's really important to learn how to engage that pelvic floor to be able to keep that pop can firm. So I tell people to do it laying down first, just to kind of get the feel of it, but it's something that you can do seated or standing, or like advanced levels, as I tell people to do it while you're doing exercise. So like while you're doing squats or lunges or whatever you're doing. So the cue is to contract your pelvic floor. You're going to squeeze and hold, kind of like you're trying to hold in a poop. So
there's no other way to say it, right?
No, there isn't. No. So you're squeezing and holding, and there's a longer hold and a shorter hold that I like to do for Kegels. So the quick hold is just hold for 2 seconds, relax for 2 seconds, hold for 2 seconds, relax for 2 seconds. So that's like the fast twitch, fast firing muscles.
Okay.
And then the longer hold is hold for 10 seconds and relax for 10 seconds. Okay. So some people have a hard time with the quick release ones, and some people have a harder time with the longer hold.
So if we can't hold for 10, and I'm thinking hypothetically, if I have a friend, Mandy, who can't hold for 10, I don't know anybody, but if I had a friend who couldn't, can we kind of go 3 seconds, 4 seconds, build our way up?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Is I have people try to do 10, but if you can't hit 10, no shame. You're going to work your way up there. You start with 3, you start with 5, you do what you can. And I tell people to do 10 repetitions. So if you can hold for 10 seconds at the beginning, you might not be able to hold for 10 seconds after you've done 10.
Right.
So maybe do it for 5 seconds and do it 10 times. And you'll notice the progression as you start to get stronger, that you can increase your seconds with time.
Gotcha. And for those that are just joining, if you just joined the video and you're like, what are they talking about? They're talking about Is it Kegels or Kegels? I don't know how to pronounce the word.
I think that it's pronounced either way. It's one of those potato situations.
How do you say it? Because you're the expert, so I'm going to go with what you say.
Okay, I say Kegels.
Okay, so we're talking about Kegels, but we're talking about these as related to, and you can see the comment running below here, correcting your sitting posture to make working in your home or office less painful. And the point here is that, Mandy's talking about your core, and all of these things are working together to support that core. And it's bottom up, it's top down, and this is one of the areas that are going to help you with your sitting posture. Absolutely.
Okay, so the next one is deep cervical flexor strengthening. So
wow, that sounds really hard.
It does sound hard, but once I explain it, you're going to be like, okay, I can do that.
All right.
So you have your superficial cervical flexors, which are the ones on the outside, and those are the ones that you use to nod your head a lot. So those get a lot of use during the day. You don't really need to strengthen those.
This is your neck muscles. That's all you're talking about.
Yes. Sorry.
I'm using like everyday speak. You're using very.
Sorry.
No, because you're a very educated medical professional person, and I'm not. I'm like, oh, cervical. That's just your neck. Is what
your neck. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Good. All right, I can do that.
So the deep ones, below the ones that you use to nod your head, are the ones that you use to pull your chin back. So it almost retracts your head. So this is really important because you want your head to be in the good anatomical position right over your shoulders, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so this is strengthening those deep cervical flexors, the deep neck flexor muscles, but it's also helping to kind of stretch out in the back of your neck. So if you're experiencing neck pain right up here in the top, or also like kind of around the front here, these are really, really good for that.
Okay.
So bringing your chin back like you're doing a double chin. So it's going to look kind of awkward and uncomfortable.
Now we got to do this because this is going to be the YouTube still frame right now, Mandy.
Right, of course. Yeah.
Ready? We got to pull this back.
Oh, please let it not be the still frame. So when I practice this one in the clinic with my patients, I again have them starting laying down.
Okay.
And I put something soft behind their head. So I use a blood pressure cuff, but you can do like a pillow or anything kind of squishy. And with the blood pressure cuff, it's nice because you have that biofeedback. I'll show them the gauge and I'll be like, this is the number you're at, push down and increase that number by 20, hold for 10 seconds and then release. So you know how much pressure you're going to put through.
Okay.
And you want only directly the back of your head to be pushed back when you do it. So like a lot of people will want to do a tilt, but I just want to see them directly pushing that back at their head back into that surface.
So again, if we don't have a blood pressure cuff at home, could we use a pillow, a towel, or what?
A towel, yes, anything soft.
And then you're putting that below your neck, or are you putting that in the back of your head, or where are you putting it?
On the back of your head, directly on the back of your head.
Directly in the back of your head, and then you're just pushing into it. Is the exercise?
Yep. You're pushing into it, and you're doing that double chin.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty easy to do. And what was the name of the technique that you said?
Deep cervical flexor strengthening.
Deep cervical flexor strengthening training, guys. So you can do this. It's sounding very complex, but it's pretty easy. It's pushing your head against a towel or something like that, and you're kind of creating that double chin effect. So it's actually pulling and stretching those muscles out and strengthening them, I think is what you're saying too.
Yep. Is that right? Strengthening in the front, it's stretching in the back. And this is something, so Kegels and the deep cervical flexor strengthening, those are things you can do when you're at a stoplight. So if you're sitting and you're waiting and you have that seat behind you, you can push your head back into that seat.
In the car. That's beautiful. I love it.
Yep.
Okay.
And then, so there's a whole bunch of things you can do with your shoulders. This time is going so fast.
No, we can keep going. And we're going to go to comments in a little bit, but I kind of don't mind because these are like things that I'm going to keep going with. And they're helpful. I told my husband before I joined the call, because he's working, sometimes he's in the living room chair, sometimes he's in the kitchen chair, and he's like at nighttime, he's got like his body, he's getting older too, right? And he's like, oh, I'm like, you got to listen. So I'll make sure he watches the playback. So no, we'll keep going. We can go up to 1 o'clock today, but we'll keep going with the exercises for a little bit, and then we'll do some Q&A before we wrap here today. So please go ahead.
So I noticed in the comments, somebody had posted that their upper trapezius was hurting. So that's a muscle that connects from the back of their neck all the way down, and then it goes up into your shoulder. So it's a big, like almost a kite-shaped muscle. So it goes from the very back of your head all the way down your neck and up into your shoulder. So super, super easy stretch that I'm sure a lot of people have heard to do to stretch this one is to just tilt your head over to the side and put a little overpressure through your hand.
To pull it out. And I've done these before too, and I like extend my other hand down to extend the stretch a little bit.
Absolutely, to drop that shoulder. Yep. And you can add a little bit. So to hit another muscle in your neck, you can actually add some rotation. So looking over to that shoulder. Good.
Okay. Am I doing that right? Am I looking towards the shoulder or away from the shoulder that I'm pulling it from?
So you're going to be looking, you're going to rotate the opposite direction that you're tilting. So whichever way you're tilting, you're going to rotate the opposite way.
Oh, okay. Are you guys doing this right now? I hope I'm not like the only person doing this. You guys better be doing these right. These are really easy. You can do these at home. And then we do the other side too, right?
Yeah. So
I feel like neglected on the other side. My other side's going, why not me? You know,
I'm all about symmetry. PT is literally symmetry.
I think I'm going to do these before every call from now on, Mandy. Thank you for
that. Absolutely. So when you do the tilts, hold for about 20 seconds and then release it 3 to 5 times on each side.
Love it. That's great.
So things you can do with your shoulders, you can do, so we want to be in a position where you're a little bit more retracted, right? Not protracted with your shoulders forward.
Yep.
So I give people rows. So you can either do it with a band or with weight, where you pull your shoulders here. Arms are tucked into your sides and you're pulling your shoulders back.
Oh, that feels good. That feels good to stretch.
Right?
Are you guys doing this? This is so much fun. Drop a note in comments after you're done stretching here, right? Of course. But aren't these like, I feels like right away, I just feel a sense of really, I was like, oh, I sometimes will do that at the end of the day. I'm like, I'll crack my back a little bit because I've been sitting for such a long time, but that's just like an easy stretch to do to release that tension. I love it.
Yep. And you're like, oh, I didn't even know that I was tight there.
Yeah.
I also tell people do shoulder shrugs up and down, really focusing on the down part, but going up to your ears and then dropping as low as you can. And then doing shoulder rolls forward and backward, loosen everything up.
This is good. I like it. Simple and easy, and we can do these sitting down. We can do these, yes. I mean, even walking around the house as we're picking up laundry and yelling at the kids to do their homework. Right. Or what have you, you know, I mean, just for example.
Yeah, it doesn't take complex equipment. So for your pecs, so those are the muscles in your chest, your upper chest here. Those are the ones that get super tight when your shoulders are rolled forward. There's 2 different ways that you can stretch those that I really like. One of them is if you prop yourself up on a door with your hands here, like on the door frame.
Like you're facing towards the door doing that?
So your shoulder is propped up on the door frame and your body is going through the door. Okay. And that way you can do a lunge with your feet and you can kind of lean into it. That way you feel the resistance of the door against your shoulder.
Pulling your shoulder away, basically.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Or if you have a foam roller, foam roller is like the number one thing I tell my patients, get a foam roller for home. It'll make a huge difference. So if you get a foam roller and you lay on it, like on your back with the foam roller the same direction as your spine, and you kind of let your arms fall open. Okay. Yeah, kind of. Oh, it feels so good. That's a game changer.
Can we use pool noodles for that too? Because I don't think I have a foam roller.
So you can use a pool noodle as long as it's thick enough. So if it's too narrow, you can wrap up towels around it to make it a little bit thicker.
You can do that. Yeah, that's good. If my husband's listening right now, if he's listening, I want you to grab the pool noodles in a towel, and we're gonna stretch our what muscle was that again?
Your pecs.
We're gonna stretch our pecs later on. There you go.
Yes. So yeah, those are the big exercises that I have written down as far as
awesome.
conditioning.
This was really helpful. And Mandy, when you first introduced this topic, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work in a video, but you're like, we can do some exercises and try some things. I'm like, let's give it a try and see how it works. And I thought actually this worked really nice. And the benefit here, guys, is too, you can watch the playback. And I would encourage you, share this video. Maybe you have somebody in your network who is struggling, and maybe you have team members that are struggling with working from home and not being in an ergonomically correct environment. And it's like, we don't know what to do and what adjustments we need to make. But also, what are the exercises we can do that we can counteract those? And hey, you could do like a Zoom I don't want to say happy hour, but you could do like a Zoom team call and you could say, hey, we learned these new techniques from Dr. Mandy Kirk today. Let's practice them before we get into our group discussion for the week. All right. And it's a really great way of, team building and, health conscious, raising as well with it. So I think, Mandy, what we'll do now, if it's okay, is we'll jump into comments. And I want to encourage folks too, if you have any specific questions for Dr. Mandy Kirk, please leave those in the comments now. So we have a few folks that have been watching all along here. I'll kind of go in the order in which the comments came in. So Catherine Bigenho, hey, Catherine, nice to see you online. And then fellow Welsh people, Nathan, joining us this morning. Nice to see you, Nathan. We are international, Mandy. We have a viewer from Egypt, so we're being shown around the world. So Mohammed, thank you so much for joining us here today. And Carrie says she really loves this. Trapezius has been killing her. She's been sitting at her desk so much. So I'm sure, Carrie, you were practicing along there with the techniques. Nathan's in his basement in Rochester Hills. David is in Dearborn in his home office. So some of us have a home office set up and others we're struggling, right? We're moving around different rooms in the house. Kelly Ann Holcomb is a fellow Troy Chamber member from Fogo de Chao. Did I pronounce that correctly, Kelly? I hope I did. Have you been there at all, Mandy? Have you been to that restaurant in Troy? It's on Big Beaver.
No, I haven't, but it's I have a patient who raves about it. So it's on my list of places to try.
Yeah, I was there once and I look forward to going back. I'm sure, Kelly, you're doing probably some curbside and things like that right now, but really great steak restaurant in a really kind of eclectic way they do of delivering the food and everything to the table. So check that out. So Carrie says, besides seat, she has a frozen shoulder and think it's worse due to my keyboard positioning.
Oh, no.
So again, could you reiterate, I'm not sure if Carrie was on earlier on, but could you reiterate some of your tips there with keyboard position and where your elbow should be and,
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to review that anyways. So elbows at 90 degrees and arms close into the body is ideal. And then as far as wrists, not too far extended or flexed, so a nice neutral position. And then I tell people, so like if you're working from a laptop at home, you have kind of a conundrum because you don't want your laptop to be so low that like you're looking down at it.
Your hands are kind of dropping down to type.
Right. So like you can raise your laptop up by propping it up on some books or putting it on a higher table, but then you're in trouble with your wrists and your arms.
You're going the other way, right?
So I tell people that if the ideal thing would be to get a wireless keyboard and plug it into your laptop. So that way you can have your hands in the appropriate height and raise your laptop up a little bit so that your screen height is good too.
Ooh, I like that. And the other thing I like, if you're doing a lot of Zoom videos, my friend Carrie, who's on right now, she does camera ready, and she always reminds me when you're looking at yourself on a Zoom, your eye level should be about the same as the camera. And one of the concerns people have is like if they're doing a Zoom on their laptop, they can't raise it because then they're typing, at a higher level. And the external keyboard would actually help you with the ergonomic issue there, and also with the camera ready coaching tip, which is keeping your camera at eye level. So really great tip. Yeah. All right. So let's see who else we have on here. David joining us from Adrian, Michigan. Carrie, we talked about the balls already. So, and I think, what Mandy, the advice she gave us is think about looking at the chair that you're in and measure what would be the ideal height. And then you can look at balls that have the diameter of that is what I heard. Did I capture that correctly?
Yeah. Yep. And then start off slow. So if you start to get fatigued on the ball after a couple hours, don't give up and say, I'll never use the ball again. Just use it for an hour or two and then switch it out with your regular chair.
Awesome. And then Carrie had, I think you kind of addressed this, but use my right hand for my mouse, left foot to breathe. Is that related? I mean, this muscle, that muscle.
Oh, absolutely. So because it connects to your shoulder and your neck, and you're using your right hand for your mouse. So you could be compensating with your left side. You could be tilting over more towards the left to move on that side. So Carrie, what I would tell you is to just kind of take a second or take a picture of yourself using your computer and analyze, am I in a symmetrical position? Because if one side is hurting and the other isn't, then there's a lack of symmetry somewhere. So you could be tilting to one side or leaning onto one side, leaning onto the arm. And because we're using a mouse in one hand and not both, there is already a lack of symmetry there. So it could definitely be causing that upper trap pain.
Interesting. So flipping from their side. All right, good. So we also have, let's see, Carrie says thank you in here. We've got Jordan joining us here today. And we have David says, love the foam roller. I'm seeing, sometimes I see blank, it says LinkedIn user. If this is you, this means that you have your privacy settings set up so that we can't see your profile picture on your account. If you need help with that, message me on LinkedIn and I'll tell you how to adjust that because we can't see. If you're showing your public profile photo, then we can see, just like, for example, Jerry Sitek here, we can see his photo, we can see his name on here. He's talking about human balanced and stability system. So, and we also have Melissa right across the street from U of M Flint, their DPT programs.
Oh, I went to U of M Flint DPT. Yay.
DPT, what does that stand for, DPT? You probably know.
Doctor of Physical Therapy.
Okay, thank you. Good. Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Well, this has been really just an amazing discussion here today, Mandy. And for those that are joining a little bit late, if you missed it, you can still watch the playback going back. And we were talking here today about, tips to correct your sitting posture to make working in your home or office less painful. And we also practiced some exercises today, and I'm going to definitely incorporate those. I'm going to watch the playback myself. I have some people that they'll watch these like as a podcast, and this is a really great one to watch and listen back to, because I think you offered some really great tips in here today, Mandy. So I just want to say thank you for joining. And I'm going to put your LinkedIn URL up on screen right now, Mandy, for those folks who are watching. Are you open to connecting with folks on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm going to pull her profile up here just so you guys can see. Let's see here. I think right here. I'm going to share it in another window so you can see Mandy's profile. So when you go here, this is the profile you'll be on. And what I would encourage you to do is, if you're going to connect with Mandy, when you invite her to connect, add a personal note with that and mention that you watched her on LinkedIn Live today. If there was a tip that was particularly helpful for you, whether it was an exercise or one of the angles or talking about the yoga balls or whatever, mention that in the invitation, because I think that really helps create greater levels of engagement with your new connections on LinkedIn. And where else can we learn about you and your business, Mandy?
So I do have a business Facebook page. Move to Success Physical Therapy on Facebook.
Okay.
And then I also have a website, so www.movetosuccesspt.com. So either one of those, you can reach out. I'm also on YouTube. I have some YouTube videos with helpful exercises for people as well.
Good. I'm going to pull her webpage up on screen here real quick so you guys can see that as well. And then I will drop into the comments below here the web address for her website where you can learn more. So really, really great conversation here today, Mandy. As we close off, I'm just going to give you the floor. Any final comments you'd like to share with the group, final tips or shout outs to anybody else who might be watching us along here today?
Yeah, so I think that something that I did want to mention is, if you are in a chair that you are struggling with, so if you're in a straight backed chair at your dining room table, that using a rolled towel might be a really good thing to give you a little bit of lumbar support. Mm-hmm. So the ball is awesome because you have to engage your core and your lumbar spine automatically. But if you don't have a ball, or if you're in a situation where you have to be sitting on this seat and it's just super uncomfortable, I like to tell people to roll a towel just to give you a little bit of that lumbar curvature and support. And reassess your posture often. So set a timer for every hour if you can, and stand up, move around a little bit, or look at yourself in your seated position if you're in a meeting and be like, ooh, this is probably not ideal. What can I do to correct this? So just reassess often.
I love it. And I'm even finding myself, I don't know if you guys are doing this too, I'm finding myself throughout this conversation, I'm like, oh, I'm starting to slouch. Okay, yeah. I'm pushing my stomach forward. I'll pull it back a little bit and, pull the shoulders back. So these are really great reminders, and I think things that can help us all, Mandy. So thank you so much for making the time today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on it.
All right, guys. So we're going to wrap here for today. I just want to invite all of you, if you're not already, connected with Mandy, reminder to connect with her on LinkedIn. And then also do make sure you're subscribing to mellermarketing.com/subscribe. I'll send you a weekly LinkedIn strategy tip, and I also will send out advanced notifications about future LinkedIn Live interviews. Wherever you're watching this from, I would love it if you guys could share this video. If there was something particularly helpful for you, make a comment about that when you're sharing the video out, and tag Mandy and myself in the video, and we'll be sure to comment back as well. So Mandy, thank you. Have a good rest of the day. I don't hear your little one in the background there, so looks like it worked out okay. We were, the video, I was like, if you need to grab your son, you know, I get it, you know, and I've had folks with pets that are scratching at doors and things like that too. And I'm like, they get a little nervous when we're out of the screen, but it looks like it worked out okay for us.
You did. Yeah, you have a good one too, Brenda.
All right, guys, stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll see you next week again on Social Media Pie. Thank you for joining us.